Hi, this is Stacy Bobak, co-founder and executive director of EduCanNation. This is my interview with Andrea Meharg and Reverend Kelly Addison about their cannabis education course, How to Talk to Your Children About Cannabis. Please enjoy. Thank you once again for offering your time and for doing this interview with me. And congratulations on the recent launch of your course. Can you please tell us a little bit about it?
Ooh, how to talk to your children about cannabis. I think we went from how to talk to your kids about cannabis to how to talk to your children about cannabis. And I like it better. It just flows nicer. And yeah, that's our course. That's our course. And it's taught by myself, Reverend Kelly, and the great Andrea Meharg. And we have been developing it over the last few years. And we've taught it in person and we've taught it online. And now we have it as a package that people can purchase as an online course.
Yeah, we just both think it's really important. Kelly had already been working on the idea for quite a while, and we realized that we have both backgrounds in education. We're both trained educators, and we both talk to our children about cannabis and see the benefits there. And so it was just like a perfect melding of the minds that made this come together, I think, for us.
I think so. I think so. We took it,
Absolutely.
I was teaching it a little bit online, but then when Andrea came on, you added the deep pieces of education that the course really needed. So it made it, it flushed it out. And then, of course, I wrote the book, The Smelliest Flower in the Garden with Rich, my husband, and that's part of it. And then Mama Earth Talks, reads that as well. So it's like a whole big encompassing piece of all these elements that we've been developing over a while. And oh my goodness, we finally have it out, Andrea. Finally.
Yes, huge congrats. Nice to see the transition and the evolvement of that education as well come to a final piece that you can share with the world. And we're so grateful that you have. Our educators, speaking of certified cannabis educators, which you both are, at EduCanNation, we still have concerns about the type of information that we're seeing in the schools. When it comes to the potential risk of cannabis, we still hear echoes of drugs are bad and say no to drugs. Why do you feel we need to change that narrative and teach children the truth about cannabis, including its therapeutic effects, not just the risks?
A billion reasons. There's so many reasons to teach kids about cannabis, both the potential benefits and the potential downsides for them. For me, the two most important kind of telling stats about that or facts about that are that we have done a good job, maybe in like the general public, of starting to realize that cannabis can be a medicine and that cannabis can be healthy, to the point where we know that many teens, especially, think that cannabis is totally harmless. They think like, oh, this is the great party thing to use. And like, it's, I heard from my parents, it's great and fun and harmless. And we don't, that's not the right message because it's not true. And the message that cannabis is a drug to be linked along with meth or heroin, etc. It's not the same thing. So we have a lot of like unpacking to do there. And even if you or your child are never going to touch cannabis, some people and their children will require it for a medicine. So giving people science backed education grounded in truth rather than propaganda, it's so important.
It makes me so sad to think that there are children, and I say children because they are when they're 10, 11, 12 in public school, and they're being taught that cannabis is so bad and so scary and they should never go near it. And it's the devil let us still today in 2023. But what if there's a child that's using that as their medicine that's in that class? Maybe no one knows. Maybe they just go home and they use it for their medicine, and now they're being told that they're bad and they're doing drugs and they shouldn't. Or what if they have a parent that's using cannabis and they know that that's mommy or daddy's or grandma's medicine, and then they've been told, oh my god, their parents are dirty, they're bad, they're disgusting, they're horrible people. And what's that doing to that child's mind? And that's stigmatizing going forward. What if that child needs that cannabis? I'm of the mind frame that everyone needs cannabis right away from birth. I'll say it out loud everywhere. Not necessarily the intoxication of cannabis, but a cannabinoid for our endocannabinoid system is what I believe we need. Children, adults, everybody does. And if we keep that quiet and we don't say things like that, then how are we going to get the medicine to the people that really need it?
You're right. It's going to take a lot longer to shed that misinformation that still exists in some people's belief, for sure. Speaking of people who rely on cannabis as medicine, you both shared a bit about your personal experience and how you've talked to your own children within the course. I loved that kind of personal touch that you put onto the content. I'm curious how what you're sharing with other parents through this course has impacted your relationship with your children. Can you elaborate on that personal experience? And has the language that you use with your kids helped you speak to those other parents, help you develop the language for this course, and maybe help shift their perspective from that misinformation that they might still have, or from their personal experience as well with cannabis?
For me, I've been working in the cannabis space for about 5 years. And when I started in this space, I was still hiding my cannabis use from my kids. So they're coming up on 14 and 12 now. And so I would still like wait till they went to bed and then do it in the basement. And at that point, even like with the limited cannabis education that I had, I was still battling with stigma. So for me, it's been really fascinating to watch how my relationship of talking and being open with my kids has evolved over the years as they've grown older as well. So for sure the conversation has changed. And yes, it's made it, because I have an open dialogue with my kids now, like there's no hiding anything. There's weed on top of our toaster right now. They know not to touch it, just like they know not to touch my prescription medication or to touch the alcohol, which is also readily available to them if they wanted to and could actually kill them. But because we have a really open conversation about it, it now pings me the wrong way when I hear other people talk to their kids about it in a way that I don't feel is truthful. So yeah, it's really helped me to help others, other parents have this conversation.
I feel really, really lucky that this course has grown alongside Lion. So when I actually first told him I worked in cannabis and we had discussed it, was when I was first developing the course. And the very first time I ever taught the course online, I taught it with him beside me. And he wasn't on camera, but he said hello during the course because I wanted to, I guess, show that I could talk about this course and teach this course with my child right beside me. And I mentioned things like that in the course when we're teaching the online course about how I first broke it down and explained to him. But now he's in grade 10 and he comes home and he tells me about kids vaping in the bathroom, like to the point where I was able to say that in the course that we wrote, that I know that kids are vaping in the bathroom because he told me that. He tells me that sometimes he goes and explores the path out back of the school, and that's where all the teenagers are vaping. Now, he says most of them are vaping nicotine, but some of them are vaping cannabis. And we have conversations and we say, oh, those are the healthy kids. Or we joke around when he talks about kids eating edibles and, oh, they're good. Those must be the smarter kids in the class. And it's just an ongoing conversation that we have with each other because he's not afraid of cannabis. He understands. He can talk about the endocannabinoid system. He's talked to his teachers about it when they have taught it in the course in his classes and said, no, 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 you're giving this information. I actually know the proper information. So he's become a resource for when we're teaching this online.
Like what a like stark difference that is from like, oh, there's kids out, smoking weed in the path behind the school and we don't want them vaping. We'll tell you about a why in the class, but consuming cannabis out in the woods. And of course those are the rotten ne'er-do-wells and you're having like the complete paradigm shift. Oh, those are the kids who are like regulating their nervous
Yep.
system or helping with their ADHD or
Yes.
relaxing or doing the thing. I just wanted to point out that
They're out there for
such a
lunch
paradigm.
consuming, and then they'll go back to class in the afternoon feeling less anxious. I've said that many times. I'm glad that they're consuming. Now, that's extreme. I know that that's extreme, and we can say that, but that's how I feel. I feel that everyone, including teenagers, are better off than when they're consuming cannabis than the millions of other things they could be taking on that path, including those nicotine vapes.
Although this is not something that we advocate for in the class. Kelly and I actually have differing opinions on this particular subject. And I think that's important as
Yep.
well, that as you have the conversation with your kids, it's going to look different in each family,
Right.
with each kid, with each condition, etc. So we're not saying like, take this course and, swing from one way to the other, but being able to have some education about this will help us just balance it out. So it's not just the lies that we've been told.
Right. And make that choice for you. What is right for you with your young child or your teenager?
Yeah, I appreciate all the things you're saying. I felt the same way that you did, Andrea, that I had to hide it from my family. Coming out of that cannabis closet was a big step for me. And it was actually Reverend Kelly who looked me in the eye and said, you have to be confident. You have to own your intention behind your cannabis consumption and your why. And don't be afraid to explain to people you're knowledgeable. You have that science background. So I think what other parents might get from this course is hearing that perspective from someone who has the knowledge about the science and the therapeutic benefit. And like you said, might not swing them 100% of the way to change their belief yet. We have to meet people where they're at, but it gives them a new perspective, a new way of maybe understanding or thinking about why someone might be doing whatever they're doing, and also appreciate or want to learn from them about why they consume cannabis. So I really appreciate that point about being open and honest, and how that perspective from your course can change a parent's view from hiding cannabis and still having that stigma behind it versus that open communication and kids understanding that some people use it for medicine and some people use it to feel less anxious. And generally, it's safe. And as long as you're educated, you're making good decisions. You talked a little bit about how your approach has created that open door of communication for your children. And I know, Andrea, you talked about in the course other children coming into your home. Have you noticed that conversation kind of happening either from children to children or from you to your children's friends, kind of allowing them to have that different perspective from an open conversation standpoint?
No, it's really funny. I was saying in the course that as my kids get older and they have more access around the house with their friends, that it's actually, I never think about my kids touching the weed on my toaster, but I have to start thinking about whether their friends are going to wonder what that is or know what that is or. And so I sat with my kids and I said, like, hey, this is the situation I'm at. Like, I'm going to have to call your friends in sometime and have a conversation about this. Like, all the rules, right? You can't touch this. This isn't for you, all the things. But that's a really interesting position for me to be, to talk to other parents, kids about this. So this isn't easy water to navigate. It's just not. No matter how long you've been in this space or how much stigma is real, and it slaps us in the face all the time, and we have to navigate on the daily, figuring out how to talk about this. So thank God we're doing it so that, my kids are never going to have to navigate on the daily. They're going to have an educated opinion about cannabis.
I have a lot of teenagers that come around, and I never ever impose my opinions about cannabis on the teenagers. I wait for them to come to me because it's not my right, it's their parents' right to talk to them about what they want. But I find a lot of them, because Lion does share with them, what mom does for a living. I find a lot of them want to ask questions, and they want to talk about it, and they want to know about it a little bit more, and they want to share things a little bit more about it. So it's an open door, I guess, is what it is. Not an imposed one, but certainly an open door to come and have that conversation, because they're teens. They want to know.
And they would benefit from that safe space, right? Of having a non-judgmental conversation, which, yeah, they might share with their friends down the
Right.
road and might, yeah, just change a decision they make down the future or
Right.
a judgment that they might make themselves.
And everything in our class around talking to teens specifically about cannabis, especially if your teen is already using cannabis, is around harm reduction, teaching them that if they're going to use the medicine, oftentimes we don't have the choice of whether they're going to. So if they're going to use it, how could they use it in the most effective, safe way possible? So we talk a lot about that in the class.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Well, We at EduCanNation were very, very honored to have had the opportunity to offer our services of course content review for this course, meaning our certified cannabis educators were able to get a sneak peek and give you some feedback ahead of its release. We love supporting our members and our supporters, which you both are. Did you find value in having our organization review the content for you?
So much. Yeah, Kelly and I are both nodding our heads off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much. The people at EduCanNation, yourself included, are highly educated on cannabis science, about really understanding the facts about this. And many of you have children yourself. So to have like not a governing body, but to have a totally different kind of outside perspective with knowledge and understanding that we trust was amazing. And the feedback that you got was really detailed. Kelly and I were just talking about it, about how helpful it was for us to be able to see like little things that we missed maybe, or also looking at things in a different way. It was extremely valuable.
I think you used the perfect word, Andrea, trust. We trust EduCanNation, and EduCanNation is a trusted cannabis education resource, the trusted cannabis education resource in our country. So to have you review our course is quite an honor. Thank you very much for that.
We get to put your badge on our course
Yeah.
saying
Thank you.
that you reviewed
Yes.
it. I
Thank
know,
you
it's so
for doing that.
exciting.
Thank you.
Love that. Well, thank you again for the opportunity. It was our great pleasure, and we really appreciate you putting this course out. Can you speak just again about how people can access the course? You said they can purchase it. How does it work when they purchase it to get, the whole course with the different modules and the handout and anything else you'd like to share about the course?
Yeah, the class, it takes you about an hour, a little bit over an hour to get through the whole thing. And we do have it divided up so that there's a module about talking to younger children about cannabis, and then a module for talking to teens and, early adults about cannabis. So depending on who your children are, you have access to different information for it. You get it all at once. So it's your class for as long as it exists. And something we didn't get a chance to mention was that it's not just our class. We give you a really robust resource guide so that you can kind of do your own little deep dives on whatever it is that you're interested in. There's loads and loads of resources out there to help you, and we've curated the best ones for you so that you don't have to do all the digging.
Yeah, and it's revealcannabis.com/kids is the place you need to go. And you can pay by PayPal, and you can pay it in many different currencies. We're in Canada, but you can buy it in USD or Canadian or Venezuelan or Yugoslavian, or I'm sure it's not that, but it'll convert it.
Thank you for sharing those resources, because as you said earlier, it depends on the family. It can be individual for the children, the way you want to have that conversation. So I think having such a vast list and amount of resources is really helpful, so people can kind of learn the basics from the course and pick up a few conversation starters, and then dive into the resource that makes sense for their child's age or where they're at in their level of cannabis understanding. So I just want to thank you both again for putting this out there, for changing the conversation about how to talk to your children about the cannabis plant. And I would encourage everyone to go check it out as soon as you can.
Thank you.
Thanks
And
so
watch
much,
it with your
Stace.
children. Watch it with your little ones. Watch it with your older ones. Watch it together. It's something you can all watch and follow along with.
Yes, I love how you said in the handout, they deserve to hear the truth as well. So we can change that conversation from what it used to be. Sure. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Have a
Thanks,
good day.
Stacy.